So good evening, everyone. Um, we are going to get started. Grateful to everyone's presence here tonight. Grateful for the opportunity to gather, for us to all be in one place, to still be breathing and working and loving each other. Despite all that's happening this year, we are still moving forward and being able to be inspired by the likes of the Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu and continue the work that he has instructed us to do. I'm excited to hear from his friends, families, colleagues. For those of y'all who knew him very closely, I didn't know him that well. I knew him as a student of his. I read his works and I followed his journeys and I took his blueprint and continued to try to make it my own. But I'm excited to hear from y'all, those of y'all that are in his inner circle. So I'm really grateful for y'all presence tonight. Before we begin the formal program, we would like to open with a prayer. We would like to ask his wife, Mama Rita Kunjufu, to open this gathering with the sacred words in the tradition that is sacred to him and to your family and to all of us, and to usher into this really beautiful moment through the, the tapping into that which is the guiding force for all of us. So, Mama Rita, would you please begin, open us with some prayer?
You gotta tell her to unmute,
The
brother.
line is muted. Yeah, she got to unmute. Your
You
line
gotta
is
unmute,
muted,
Mama.
Mom.
If she just scrolls on her picture, the mute button will be right up in the right-hand corner.
She might be on the computer.
Okay, can you hear me
There she
now?
go. We got it. Yeah, there she go.
Okay, thank you. Well, praise the Lord. Let's go before the Father with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you in Jesus' name, and we've gathered together to honor and to give tribute to one of your children. But before we do that, we must first give honor to you. For without you and his life, the man of God, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, could never have been the great influencer that he was. You elevated him to the platform where he stood, and you anointed him from his mother's womb. Father, it's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. We praise you because you're the Alpha and the Omega. You're the beginning and the end. We praise you because you're a covenant keeper. We praise you and honor you because you're a deliverer. We praise you because you're our everlasting Father. We praise you because you're faithful. We praise you because you're good. We praise you because you're the only wise God and you're our healer and our only hope. We praise you because you're not just enough, but you're more than enough for us. We praise you because you're King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We praise you because you're a miracle worker. We praise you because you're our peace. We praise you because you are Yahweh. We thank you for Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through him. Jesus, your finished work at the cross gave us power and the authority to use your name. And because of you, we have a blood-bought right to eternal life. You're the greatest story, the most amazing gift, and the blessed hope of all who believe. And we thank you that when you took your seat at the right hand of the Father, you left us with another comforter. Holy Spirit, you are the Spirit of truth. You teach us all things and bring all things to our remembrance. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So have your way in this place. Speak through every speaker so that your voice will be heard behind every word that's spoken. Let your glory flow so there won't be any big eyes and little U's. And that, as my husband would say if he were physically here, leave the egos at the door. For only you, God, deserve the glory, the honor, and the praise. For it is in the matchless name of Jesus, whose name is above every name, that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mama.
Praise the Lord.
Also sending grace to you as much as it was a loss for all of us. We know that you've had to bear the burden of losing a companion. So sending our prayers out to you too. Thank you so much for helping us convene today. This could not have happened without you and your contacts and your spirit. So thank you for bringing us all here today.
Thank
And
you.
Dr. Larry Turner also was instrumental in making this event today happen. So I want to thank you both for bringing us together. This is our welcome. This is the gathering we are here for today. We wanted to quickly go through and just anchor ourselves in why we are here, who we are here for. Mama Rita sent me a bio that I wanted to read. She said I can condense it, but I don't believe in condensing the work of people who've done such good work, right? People do good work, we should read it. So I'm going to read his bio as we get started. And y'all can read along. I'm going to share the screen so y'all can see it as I see it. Can y'all see the screen?
We can see the screen. Yeah, we can see it, Doc. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can I see the screen? Here we go. Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu dedicated his career to addressing the ills afflicting Black culture in the U.S., working as an educational consultant and author. All aspects of the African American experience occupied Kunjufu's attention, but the main thrust of his work has been directed towards improving the education and socialization of Black youth. In 1980, Kunjufu founded African American Images, the publishing company that published his books, and sponsored thousands of his workshops intended to help educators and parents develop practical solutions to the problems of child rearing in what he perceived to be a racist society. Kunjufu held advanced degrees in business and economics that enabled him to place the problems of Black society in the larger context of national. Born on June 15, 1953, in Chicago, Kunjufu, who adopted his Swahili name in 1973, credits the unconditional love of his mother, Mary Brown, his grandmother, Gonji, say his name, Mama Rita, his grandmother's name. Unmute. I want to make sure.
Gongi.
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 And his
This is
wife.
yes.
Oh, that's his sister. Gongi and his wife Rita, with affording him the encouragement, discipline, and stability that would later become the foundation for his mission for the renewal of the Black society. As a young man, Kunjufu was urged by his father, Eddie Brown, to volunteer his time at a number of different jobs, working without pay in exchange for learning firsthand how businesses and skilled craftsmen went about their work. Kunjufu attended Illinois State University at Normal and received a Bachelor's of Science degree in economics in 1974. 10 years later, he finished a doctorate in business administration at something on my screen, graduate school. Despite his formal training in business, Kunjufu was early on fascinated and appalled by the educational system for Black students in America. And from 1974 onward, he began delivering lectures and workshops treating the problems facing Black educators. His presentations were well received, and Kunjufu eventually decided to make educational consulting his career. Kunjufu's two sons, Shikamana and Walker, further focused his energies on the contradictions inherent in Black education, and especially in the education of young Black males. The fruit of these observations were the 1982 publication of Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, probably Kunjufu's best-known work, in which he analyzes and offers alternatives to the frequent failure he sees in schools and in the marketplace. In Kunjufu's view, the conspiracy against Black males is fundamentally rooted in the need of a white minority to control the world's far greater population of people of color. But in addition to overt racism, Kunjufu included in his indictment all teachers, parents, and especially adult Black males who failed to provide the support and discipline needed to keep Black boys off the streets and in the classroom. Kunjufu saw Black males as caught in a self-perpetuating cycle of failure in which the absence of stable, successful adult role models ensures that young Blacks will do poorly in school, turn to street life, and father yet another generation of boys without adequate male role models. The net result is the prevention of Black males from attaining positions and economic power. Kunjufu developed counter strategies to this conspiracy in a number of his other books. In 1986, Motivating Black Youth to Work, he suggests that Black Americans shift the basis of their value system from money to the encouragement of each other's individuals' natural talents, a shift Kunjufu urges that each Black child be helped to identify and cultivate his or her talents. From these discoveries, the child must build a means of livelihood, preferably according to Kunjufu, by starting his or her own businesses. But in order to do this, children need the support and discipline of strong, loving, and concerned parents. In another of his books, 1984's Developing Positive Self-Images and Discipline in Black Children, Kunjufu cites the University of Chicago study of 70,000 schools across the United States. The study concluded that the most important factor in pupil performance was the expectations of his or her parents and teachers. This conclusion supports Kunjufu's belief in the utmost importance of parental interest and support for schoolwork, along with the stimulation and challenge of a talented teacher. In this, as in all of his books and workshops, Kunjufu sees the family as the only effective defense against inequality. He particularly stresses the critical role of Black men's role as role models and providers of discipline. In conjunction with his writings, Kunjufu and his wife, who was also his business partner through African American Images, organized workshops for schools, community groups, and parents concerned with issues of education and economic independence. Kunjufu traveled constantly addressing schools from the elementary grades on up to the college level. He also appeared on a number of TV programs, including The Oprah Winfrey Show and Tony Brown's Journal. In the late 1980s, Kunjufu entered a new sphere of activity as co-author with Dr. Fulani Prescott of a curriculum called Set Clay, Self-Esteem Through Culture Leads to Academic Excellence. Set Clay contains a series of workbooks for grades K through 8 for high school, along with some supplementary materials as constructed to tackle self-esteem issues that many African-American youths face in today's media-driven culture. Designed to help combat these internal and external forces affecting African-American youth, these workbooks, divided into 32 lessons, cover such topics as goal setting, family trees, African history, culture, Ebonics, rap, values, manhood, womanhood, and academic development. Kunjufu's new sphere of activity also included him becoming the executive producer of a full-length motion picture, Up Against the Wall. Inspired by the success of independent Black filmmakers, Kunjufu set out to make a film about Black urban culture that would address the problems facing young Black males without indulging in scenes of violence, sex, and drug abuse. Kunjufu told Frank James of the Chicago Tribune, "I wanted a movie that could take a Black boy through positive and negative peer pressure and see if he could survive and be a responsible young man." Up Against the Wall was completed in 2 years at approximately $2 million and was released in January of 1991 to a limited number of theaters, primarily in the South. Kunjufu was unable to interest major film distribution in his project, which they thought was too tame for the audience of that day, but did not do well enough at the box office to encourage Kunjufu to put the movie in print. On many occasions, Kunjufu was faced with challenge was because he said that he considered himself to be a Christian who valued Afrocentricity and that he did not believe that one negates the other. In fact, he said he believed that the two reinforced each other. So during those challenging conversations, he would ask a question that, what was the apple I just ate, bitter or sweet? And when the listener was silent, Kunjufu would say, see, that's my point. You're reinforcing the scripture that teaches that we have to taste and see for ourselves that the Lord is good. And Kunjufu would conclude with this very familiar statement, for those who believe, no explanation is necessary. For those who don't believe, no explanation is possible. Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. And now no other can speak to him better than himself. Well, we would like to hear his voice, hear his words, hear his clarity and insight on the national stage in a quick clip from a TV show. Let me make sure I'm sharing the sound. Yes.
Afraid of a people that you've attempted to commit genocide against, not only then but now.
Jawanza, is it the fault of the media?
Well, there's no question that there's a direct relationship between images and self-esteem. It goes all the way back to Tarzan, to Superman, to Rambo, to Batman, to even painting the image of Jesus Christ as white. I mean, you can't separate racism from anything. So it's not unlikely then that you have Pope Julius commissioning Michelangelo in 1505 to paint Jesus Christ white. Images control self-esteem. Abraham Lincoln found out very early, when you have 300 slaves on a plantation and one master, it takes a lot of work. Why don't you let them go? But don't teach them who they are. Control their history, control their images. Then you won't have to watch them. Whoever controls the mind will also control the body.
Let's talk about the image of the Black man in America when we return. Stay tuned. Trying to find the card here of an article I had read in Newsweek magazine by Sylvester Monroe, a reporter for Newsweek. Went back to the projects in Chicago to see where he had been reared and all. And he said, as he sees it, the image of a black man in America is like when he gets on an elevator, a woman She grabs her purse a little tighter to herself, fear that this black man's going to steal it. He's walking down a deserted street with a black friend, and a white couple is walking toward them, and they cross the street for fear of these black men. Is that the image of black men in America as you see it?
Well, one of the things that I'm concerned with in one of the books that I've written, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, is what happens early on. And one of our concerns is we have studies that document that black boys may be the best students in the country up until 4th grade. So the question is, what happens to black boys in the intermediate and upper grades to begin to create the kind of image that you're talking about when they become 18 years and older? I sincerely believe that only men can make boys men. Now, don't misquote me. I did not say that a single female parent cannot rear or educate her child, but she need not do that by herself. Because I understand we're on television time, it's time to make the point very clear. Where are black boys going to see black men? If you look at the home, 38% of all black children live in a single-run household. In terms of school, 83% of all elementary school teachers are women. 95% of all teacher aides are women. When you look at on television, you'd be hard-pressed to name 5 positive black men on television outside the news, especially if I excluded Bill Cosby. And then, unfortunately, many young people, men don't go to church. So the last place is the streets, and that's the problem. The streets do a very poor job making black men. So the real problem is black boys have a difficult time seeing strong black male role models, which is why these kind of shows are very important.
I'm always so impressed when I see the unwavering clarity of his voice, his analysis. And with that, and speaking to the importance of these gatherings to show us and to remind us that we have continued strong black voices, men, women, young, old, gather here today to share remarks about his work, his influence, his character. I'm excited to hear from this amazing lineup of speakers. I will be the moderator today, so I'll be moving things forward. We're asking people kind of to speak for around 5 minutes so we could hear everyone's testimonies. I will introduce myself. I am a psychologist who spent a lot of time reading the books on my father's bookshelf, and a lot of those were Jawanza Kunjufu's books. My father was it was important to him to give his children books as gifts for Kwanzaa, for birthdays. We got lots of books in the house, and I saw my father reading. I knew reading was important because that's what my father did. And so early in my career, I wrote a book for young black men about manhood and relationships, and was honored. The thrill of my life was to get some of my teachers, some of my mentors, the people who I didn't necessarily have in my life, but their work was my guideposts. And so Dr. Kunjufu gave me a review for this early book where he says that Dr. Cartman does a brilliant job in empowering black males to reach their full potential. It's clear that the structure of the family is near and dear and important to him. So that was just the affirmation that I needed to continue to do the work that I was doing. Knew I was on the right place because Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu encouraged and affirmed the work that I was doing. Up and through still today, this book was released about 10 years ago. And last week, I got an award, the inaugural Jawanza Kunjufu Leadership Award from the My Brother's Keeper, Obama Foundation's mentoring organization, just to talk about me representing the work that Jawanza Kunjufu left in the city. And so that's what brings me here. Dr. Kunjufu was one of those, guiding lights for me. His work, his insight continues to be inspirational for me. So happy to learn from those of us who were friends of his. Dr. Larry Turner, I mentioned earlier, is one of my, friends, confidants, and colleagues. I took this picture of Dr. Larry Turner at a high school, maybe last year, Diet High School. Dr. Larry Turner is a clinical psychologist, and one of the reasons that I admire him so much, he's such an inspiration to me, is because he reminds me that there's decades more of work for me to do, and that he's still out in the field, in the trenches. This is him leading a group of young men at a high school in the pledge that him and Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu created with the community of men that he co-facilitated with. So Dr. Larry Turner was a colleague of his and a mentor of mine and a friend of mine. So without further ado, I would love to hear the remarks and insights that you've learned from working with Dr. Jawanza here in Chicago with the community of men and how that inspires your work continue to today. Dr. Larry.
Okay. All right.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Byron. Okay, let me correct a few things. Jawanza created that. And he created he started along with some other brothers, Community of Men, at Trinity. And it was well put together. I stopped in a couple of times. He and I really connected when he left Trinity. And we went a couple of places where we gave this pledge. This pledge, by the way, is a very spiritual pledge. He created that, and he's got several different versions of that. And it's really good. It fits right in. But that's how we would start off Community of Men when we were outside, not at Trinity. We spent 5 years at Father Flager's gym, and that was good. I know what I stopped in at Trinity a couple of times. Very large, very great support from the men there. When we got to Trinity, there were a few. I mean, when we got to over at Father Flager's place, there were only like a few of us. And one of the things that happened was it seems like all of the women would bring their sons. Very few fathers would bring their sons, and a number of reasons. Maybe they're working, maybe they weren't around, but it was really good, and we stayed there for 5 years. Then we moved to after 5 years. Jawanza was going back and forth to Arizona, and I was doing some other things, and it kind of boiled down to just a few of us. So we moved over to on Jeffrey on 74th that I think it's the Southside Methodist Church, and we conducted it there. But along the way, Philip Jackson started Black Star. I think it was 1994, and he came and saw what we were doing. So it was really great. It was really great. And the things that Jawanza did, that he created, were really flexible. And it really comes down to the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how you combine those. Young men are going to be physically strong even if they don't do push-ups and whatnot. That's just their natural growth. The mental part is in school, and that's where we have a lot of problems. Spiritual part depends on where you get it or how you get it. As he said previously, a lot of men aren't attending church. I was forced to go to church when I was young, and Bible study, and choir rehearsal. So when I got of age to not go to church, that was my path. But we continue his books. Really insightful. They can be complicated, but mostly they're really plain and simple. There are a lot of different versions of the work that he's doing. Some people have made it co-ed, but however you do it, the principles are still the same. You have to work on all three levels of an individual: spiritual, mental, and physical. And that's how the program was set up. So I know some of you were there with him when he was at Trinity. And it was a much bigger program. So I will rest. But this brother, I was saddened to hear I called to talk to him. When we did this at a high school, they said, well, they were worried about you're going to use his speech. I said, yeah, you better call him and get permission. I said, I don't need to call him to get permission. That's the thing. But I hadn't talked to him in about, I don't know, a year or so. So I did call him anyway. I said, hey, man, how you doing? And it was nice to hear his voice. I did not know that would be the last time that I heard my friend's voice. But he was still there. So anyway, I look forward to hearing other tributes to my good friend, Jawanza Kunjufu. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Dr. Turner. No, thank you. Thank you for your work. When I was putting this together, I found out another brother, another friend, mentor of mine, Brother Vince Hutch Price, was also part of those community of men with Dr. Kunjufu and you and at Trinity. I wanted to just pay homage to him for a moment. He didn't ask for this, but he is one of the most consistent servants of young men in the city, maybe in the country that I know. We do a lot of events, and he always shows up. And just about 95% of the time, he got young men with him, usually young men in the foster system. He's probably one of the few men that I know that comes to all of the events, but always brings young men with him. So once I found out that he was a part of that community, I wanted to give him an opportunity to say a word if he felt like it. I think I just got a text from him saying, nah, he don't want to, but wanted to acknowledge you and your work and thank you for the model that I think that we all need around the country, is to not just read the books and show up at the lectures, but to bring young men with us so that we can really, for real, continue this legacy. I mean, you do that in a way that I think is brilliant and excellent. So I want to thank you for that. If you do want to speak, you can come and, come back later if you feel like it, but just wanted to acknowledge your presence. Um, and Brother Michael Reeves, you're a close friend of the family. Would love to hear some of your remarks also.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Obari, and thank you, Miss Rita, for asking me to speak on my friend's behalf. Jawanza was a special person. We all know that. Anybody who knew him, he was just a great man. I had the opportunity to meet Jawanza at Illinois State, January of 1971, when we were members of the Illinois State Gospel Choir, or Interdenominational Youth Choir. We both sang bass. We were in the bass section, and we frequently sat next to each other. And one of the things that I recognized right away about Jawanza was his outgoing and friendly personality. And, above everything else, he loved God. And that was obvious even when we were back in college. His relationship with God was always very serious and very important to him. I know he was raised in church, as I was too, many of us were. But when he was in his 20s was when he really got serious about pursuing his relationship with God and wanting to be closer to him. And it was during that time that God spoke to his heart. And I remember we were having a conversation one day in college, or just before we graduated, just after we graduated. And we were talking about our different careers, and he said he was going to talk. And I said, "You're going to talk? What does that mean? You're just going to talk?" And, I didn't understand, and I don't even know if he fully understood how God was going to use him as a vessel to communicate his knowledge and wisdom to so many, many other people. I moved to Minnesota. I'm from Chicago originally. I moved to Minnesota in 1991 and joined Mount Olivet Baptist Church here in St. Paul. And in 1995, I believe it was, he was the keynote speaker for the Dr. Martin Luther King celebration that we were having. And he called me and told me he was coming. And of course, I was going to be there. He also spoke at my church the Sunday before that day. And he was the keynote speaker at the Dr. King celebration at Concordia College. And I didn't realize how popular he was. I mean, I knew he had been on TV and all this other stuff, but the college auditorium was packed. And I felt so proud of my friend that all these people came out to see him. I knew him, but I didn't realize so many other people knew him. And there had to be like hundreds of people. And everybody loved him. Jawanza, as you know, had the gift of reaching everybody in the audience, the young, the old, the educated, the not so well educated. The first time he came, like I said, after I moved to Minnesota, was in '95. And then he met or became acquainted with other leaders in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and he would come back frequently. I don't know how many times he came back, but I know he came back frequently. There were two principals at my church, one from St. Paul, one from Minneapolis. Every time they saw me, when is he coming back? When is he coming back? When is he coming back? And when he would have workshops or whatever in the evening after I would get off work, I wasn't a teacher, but I went to the workshops. He would always ask me to come by. And again, it was the same thing. One time I went, he was speaking to parents, and, everybody was just so engaged with his conversations. He was just a gifted speaker, as everybody on this call really knows. Another time at one of the high schools, after I retired, I started volunteering and doing work in the schools to help talk to the students about their study habits and focusing in school, paying attention. And I was standing next to two staff members, and they happened to be watching a video of Jawanza. And I'm like, whoa, this is really something. And they said, do you know him? I said, well, yeah. I said, I went to college with him. He's my good friend. And again, just speaking to his popularity and how great his influence was, I won't even say across the nation, but across the world. His messages of love about teaching our students, he had a heart, as has already been said, about teaching our young students, especially the young boys, the importance of education. Now, when I think I said a little bit ago, I retired from IT and HR back in 2012, and God put it on my heart to do some work in the schools with young people. I've been, working at different schools, and one the last 5 or 6 years now, and really just helping our young folks to learn how to take notes, study, pay attention, be respectful, and to do their best in the classroom. So he inspired other people, and he was an inspiration to me. Because like I said, I retired in 2012, and here I am, I'm still working, but I just want to do my best to help do what Jawanza was doing and to keep motivating our young people to do the best that they can do. So thank you for your time.
No, fantastic. I didn't know that I would get a chance to talk to people who were in college with him. We can come back to this later, but I've always been curious, for those of him that knew him then as at studying economics, how the switch went from that field to education. And I thought he was a psychologist for a lot of my life. So, but he was so multidisciplinary, like you couldn't even pinpoint what his area of expertise was because he was so good at so many things.
Right.
But I've always wondered how that went from majoring in economics to being such a knowledgeable education historian expert. But we can come back to that. But I just wanted to pin that question for some of the folks that might speak to that, how well-rounded he became as a student, as a scholar. But before that, thank you, Brother Reeves, for sharing. We also have Dr. Yaounde Olu, who just in passing, we were on a panel by someone else, and I found out that she was an illustrator for some of his books and got to work with him intimately to help bring the vision of his work through the visual aspect of her talent. So I wanted to ask her to speak to what it was like to work with him and some of the things you learned and remembered from your time with Dr. Kunjufu, Dr. Olu. And these are some of the illustrations in some of the books. These are not all of them. These are just some of the ones that she worked on with Dr. Kunjufu.
Dr. Olu, you got to unmute your line.
Okay. First of all, I am so happy to be part of this celebration. He was a very, very special person. Let me start out by saying that I spent most of my so-called official career as an educator. I was a high school, an elementary school teacher, high school teacher, and I ended up I retired as a principal. And I'm also a visual artist. And I met Kunjufu, Jawanza way back in the day probably in the early 1980s. And he was just a super inspiration to me. And part of that had to do with the fact that as an educator, I was always interested in uh, what tools and what activities would be valuable for my students. And he turned out, when I met Jawanza, the first book that I read from him was Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. That book blew me away. It was extremely eye-opening. And prior to that time, basically, I had looked at education as a um, uh, co-gender activity. Females and males. I didn't separate the need for the Black boys to really have someone who is an advocate him for them in the way that that he was. But when I read that book, that turned me out. And then we've talked a lot about the philosophy of education. And as a result, I ended up illustrating about 5 of his books. The one that's not missing, I mean, that's not noted here, there was the last book that I illustrated was for someone else that he was, I guess, working with. And that was a book called, that was focusing on female rites of passage. So I did that, but my first books were the ones that were just on the screen. The elementary version and high school versions of there you go. Lessons from History, a Celebration in Blackness. That's the high school version. Then To Be Popular or Smart. That was also a book that ended up being very, very popular. But the bottom line is, um, I was so impressed by not only his knowledge and his unique and innovative approach to education, especially education as it relates to Black boys, and as well as to girls, um, that provided for me a personal philosopher who looked at something in a different way and started a whole movement. He ended up having a whole store. I know you all probably know about this on 95th Street. And by the way, we also ended up being in the same church, Trinity. It's interesting how life follows you that way. But I will like after seeing that and after the books that he did, and after me getting a chance to see education, not necessarily from a traditional Chicago uh, standpoint, but to really understand someone who is trying to be innovative when it comes to looking at education in the African American community. That was the big lesson that I learned from Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. He was an inspiration, and I have to admit, I was absolutely shocked when I heard about his demise. I couldn't believe that. And he will forever have a place in my heart for being able to highlight African American education from a non-traditional, well, I won't even say non-traditional, from a unique standpoint that, on the one hand, really did focus on the need to honor and protect our Black boys. And that was a key. He also had a series of uh, programs, Set Clay, I believe that's what it was called. And he was just a role model, even though I have to admit I'm a little bit older than he is.
Just a little bit.
But he was a role model for me. And to this day, he's one of the ones who really gave me a different way to look at education, even though I had been trained in the traditional sense with the traditional academics. But Jawanza was the one who opened my eyes and made me see another layer of academic education for our students.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for your work. And your art will live forever, right? Through the relationship you had with him. So thank you for that gift also.
And thank
Next,
you
I would
for
love
doing
to.
this event. Thank you
No,
for
of
that.
course.
I really want to say this real quickly in case I forget. I appreciate what's happening right now. This is a great event. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And next, we would love to hear from Dr. David Miller, one of the hardest working men I know, a stalwart for education, for literacy, for culture. Is doing amazing work all around the world. So, David Miller, you have some reflections to share. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Obari, and to so many folks who are gathered across the country. I'm going to be super brief because I really want to hear some of the other powerful reflections from brothers and sisters of how Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu has touched all of our lives. I was one of those boys in the third or fourth grade who became disconnected and disenchanted with education. Educated in the Baltimore City public schools. I met Dr. Kunjufu in 1985. I was still in school and was absolutely blown away by his depth, his analysis when we think about countering the conspiracy to destroy Black boys, and his passion to focus on the strengths of Black boys and Black families versus deficits. And so I will always be internally grateful to the life and legacy of Dr. Kunjufu. And in the city of Baltimore, Tubman City, we have a 30-year plus history of doing African-centered rites of passage, modeling for both young men and young ladies. And a lot of their work was really predicated on the life and legacy of Dr. Kunjufu. And even in my own personal life, I started writing children's books about 12 years ago, again, inspired by Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, that we can be unapologetically Black, to tell stories, positive narratives about Black boys and Black girls. And so once again, I just want to thank Dr. Kunjufu's family for sharing him with us. The countless hours that he was on the road, zigzagging across the country, doing professional development, whether it's with educators, social workers, psychologists, human service workers. And so oftentimes we don't look at the sacrifices that the families of many of these heroes and sheroes have to make. These brothers and sisters are on the road doing this God-sent work. And so again, I have been amazingly blessed meeting him when I was in high school. And just want to say thank you, Dr. Obari and others in the great city of Chicago for feeling that it was not robbery to host this tribute this evening. So once again, just want to say thank you and peace and blessings to all of the folks in the building.
Thank you, Baba. Appreciate the work you're doing. Inspired by your leadership and your legacy also. One of the things that's the good news about all of this gathering is that, we're not mourning, we in grief, right? There's a loss, but the work is continuing. And brothers like you and brothers like Principal Baruti, Patrick, everybody, all the brothers here are continuing to do work that I know he's proud of. So just appreciate you for your work. You and our next speaker, Brother Principal Baruti, another one of the hardest working men out here for us, for the people, for education, for creating standards of excellence for our children. Principal Rudy, your floor is yours.
Appreciate that. Hotep to the family out there. And Brother Obari, I appreciate you for the opportunity to be a part of this important tribute. I want to personalize my remarks. You know, back in the 70s when I was in high school, I reached rock bottom. And when I say rock bottom, I mean rock bottom academically. Some point later, I decided to go to undergraduate school. And the ancestors led me to becoming a voracious reader of all things African history. So whether it be the continent, whether it be America, whether it be wherever in the diaspora. So with that, being a business major, I knew then I wanted to be a teacher because of what I was exposing myself to. But I never took an education course. But one day, it's a popular bookstore up in Harlem on Malcolm X Boulevard called Liberation Bookstore. So I'm in the store buying more African history books. And on the shelf was this book, Developing Positive Self-Images in Black Children. And I had never heard of Dr. Kunjufu just yet, but I knew I wanted to become a teacher. So this was about 1984, 84, 85. I took the book off the shelf. And as they say, the rest is history. I become a teacher, but again, I never took an undergraduate course in education. Everything that Dr. Kunjufu would put out there, I'd buy it. I'd read it. I'd infuse it into who I was as I became a teacher. So in my 4th year of teaching, I'm a baby, I'm a rookie and haven't taken an education course, but they named me as the district teacher of the year, the county teacher of the year, and New Jersey State finalist teacher of the year, because the work of this man, the books that he was putting out, but he was also coming to New York and he was speaking, but he was also on New York radio a lot, New York talk radio, Black talk radio. So I'm learning from him through various different channels. So it's making me into this teacher that's getting these results. But hear me, and I hope this comes across the right way, but I'm not corrupted by undergraduate pre-service programs, right? I don't know anything about that. All I know is, how can I take all this history that I've been reading? How can I take Dr. Kunjufu, who I've been studying, and how can I infuse this into my instruction and inspire my children to elevate as a result? So this book, which both books have been on this screen, this is the elementary version of Lessons from History. But I used the elementary version. I was a 5th grade teacher at the time, but I also used the high school version, junior, senior high school version. And I was able to get my principal to get enough copies for everybody in my classroom. We smuggled them in because, you know, there ain't no way in the world nobody would allow us to do this. So we smuggled them in. And this is what I'm using as a standard text to teach language arts, to teach social studies, to teach mathematics, to teach science. So then eventually I become a principal. That's why you see on the screen Principal Kafele. And did that for the next 14 years, but never got away. Now, these are not the only two. Dr. Kunjufu wrote about 60 books. I have about 30 of them. So I'm infusing all of that in. But here's the cherry on the top. So I'm at this NABC conference like years ago. I don't even remember what state it is, what state it was in, but it's the National Alliance of Black School Educators. So I'm walking down the hall, and not that picture though. That's later. I'm walking down the hall. I was much younger than what you saw in the picture, and I see Dr. Kunjufu. So I said, man, I got to meet this man, man. I've been using his work. I mean, I am him, right? In terms of who I was professionally. So I say, Doc, you know, I'm humble with it. I just want to shake your hand. That's literally what I said to him. I said, I just want to shake your hand. And he said, what's your name? I said, Baruti Kafele. He had 2 bags in his hands because he had spoken at the conference, right? He dropped both bags, literally dropped them. He grabbed me and put me in a bear hug. And he said, Brother Baruti, I have read every book you've written. You somebody that I've been admiring from a distance for a very long time. Let me tell y'all something, and I'm going to shut up in a second. That's like one of the high points in my entire professional life. You know, when you meet your hero, and your hero tells you he been reading your stuff, it just doesn't get much better than that, right? So, so the last time I saw him was that picture that was in North Carolina. We were speaking at a conference again. So we were the featured speakers. So once again, high point, right? I'm a featured speaker with Dr. Kunjufu. Are you serious? Right. So we took the pic, and I called him a few times. I do a podcast live stream every Saturday morning, and I tried desperately to get him on, but Doc don't like virtual stuff, man. So I didn't get him, but I'm just glad that he was a part of my professional life, but obviously that impacted my personal life, and I'm gonna end it there. But again, Dr. Cartman, Brother Obari, appreciate the opportunity to just
No, I
share.
appreciate you. Appreciate you. Make sure y'all go to the link and get his book too, so y'all can know what Dr. Kunjufu was impressed by, right? So
Yes, sir.
follow up with that too. Appreciate your work, your testimony, brother.
Yes, sir.
And next, we'd love to hear from Dr. Folami Prescott Adams. Knowing her for a while, I didn't know that she was a part of the curriculum that we referred to said class. So without further ado, Mama Folami, please share your words of wisdom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obari, for putting this together, Rita, for pulling an amazing group of people together. So I'm honored to be one of those people. Yeah, I want to share 3 ways that Jawanza deeply influenced my life. Uh, and I want to start with my career. When I first met Jawanza, I was teaching at an independent school, Wasset Academy. I was teaching a 6th through 10th grade class, and I'd heard he was in town. And, when I saw Brother Baruti holding up that book, I said, okay, he did it. I don't have to do it. Because that book was my Bible to teaching. And so I had to go hear him speak. What I didn't expect is that I would be so mesmerized by his style, his passion, what he was teaching about. And when he finished, it was at Clark Atlanta University at Davidge Auditorium. This is 1987. I couldn't move. So I was the only person in the auditorium, y'all, because everybody was already in those long lines buying his book pre-sale. I remember that. I believe it was Motivating and Preparing Black Youth to Work. And I was floored because I didn't know there was such a career where you teach and inspire other teachers. I didn't know. We have a lot to do around just teaching young people what's out there for them to do. And so when I walk up to them, I just tell them, like, I love what you talk about. And you said we need to teach young children to draw a pyramid and put themselves in the middle. I said, that's nice, and it's not enough. He said, well, you should get in touch with me. I said, well, at first I want to buy your book. He said, well, I don't have the book here, but you can pay for it now. And I was like, Dad, he's smart. I was like, this was like before anybody heard of pre-sales. Here was Jawanza doing it. I got the book pretty quickly in the mail, and then I wrote him a letter, and he responded. And I need y'all to understand I was 28 years old, and Jawanza invited me to spend the summer of 1988 in him and Rita's home, and I wrote Set Clay along with his guidance, and I did crazy days, 8 a.m. to like 3 a.m. Because when we got back to the house, I continued to write. And I did K2, 3, 5, 6, 8. It took another year for us to do high school because, I was back at home with a family. And so I had this opportunity to travel around the country with my locks down my back. I'm still under 30. And I had a slight air of excellence and entitlement. And it was an experience in Westchester, New York that changed me forever because it was the realization that our children would have many a white teacher, a white classmate, a white neighbor. And I had to find a way for folk outside of our culture to respect our culture, whatever that meant. I didn't know exactly what it would mean. And it wasn't until 2020 where I created something I call Listening for Justice, where we talk about Yes, the issues of race, but more about loving our Black selves in a multicultural, intergenerational setting. What I want you to know before I finish, though, is that people saw Jawanza as an entrepreneur first, and what they need to know is he was an activist first. That he never took royalties for any of his books because he invested the money back into the business and those whose books he published and the staff. It took many years for him to realize that he could give his family a good life and serve the community. I see Walker's here. Walker remembers me in that basement, right? Working day and night. So let me go quickly to the other two areas of influence. The second is money. Anybody who ever heard Jawanza speak remembers him saying, make 20,000, spend 20,000. That's what Black people do. He talked about this physician he met in Florida who invested in the film Up Against the Wall. I mean, that was so revolutionary, right? And I don't know if y'all remember, but CCH Pounder was in the film. This is 1991. So the physician driving an old Volkswagen van, he said, invested in his film. Why? Because she might have made 20,000, but she didn't spend 20,000. That still sits with me today. And finally, his influences on marriage. He talked about this theory, the 20-38-24 theory, that we should probably not get married till we're about 28 because we don't know who we really are until then. Don't have children till you're 30, so you have some time to get to know each other. Then when you do have children, have two and have them 4 years apart. He talked about how far off we were from that. But most importantly, he shared that we should all make a list of the qualities and characteristics that we desire in a mate. Choose the top 4 and forget about the rest. And that was the list that I used that got me to marry a man that we just celebrated 20 years. This is where you can go to the next slide. That's our 20th anniversary where we had a recommitment ceremony, but we just celebrated 30 years in August. And Jawanza imparted so much wisdom. He and Rita was such an example for me of true love and commitment. So I'm so glad that I could share some of the most memorable and impact nuggets of wisdom that he shared with me, with you. Thank you all.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much for that.
I put in the chat the Listening for Justice link as well as the music because he was the one. I was just writing a little good morning song and he said, no, I need you to put them on tape. And so that was my first compilation of children's songs. Thank you so much.
Love it. And we can maybe come back to this later, but the work of set clay is if not more important now than was then. And so we got to figure out a way to update it if it needs to be updated to make sure it's still in circulation. I got children, 10 and 13, and I know what they need. I know what they're not getting. And they in my house. So we need to use this moment to organize to make sure that there's momentum around keeping that curriculum in rotation, then this is the place to do so. So I want to come back to that too. But before we go there, we'd love to hear from Brother Patrick Oliver. One of the things Baruti just said, he wrote 60 books. Jawanza Kunjufu wrote 60 books. And I wrote 2 books, and I know how hard it is to move books around. We have a literacy crisis in our community, and that Jawanza Kunjufu was clear about, predicted, and had solutions for. So we wanted to hear from Patrick Oliver, who is one of the literacy experts who is helping make reading fun and engaging for our young people, and has got programs and books for that, and was also influenced by Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu's work. So I'd love to hear from you, Brother Patrick, about what that has meant for you in your life. You on mute, Patrick. Mic one,
There
1,
we
2.
go. There we
That's
go.
it.
Thank you, Brother Barry, for putting this together. Everybody who's presented wonderful words, just wonderful upliftment of Dr. Kunjufu's work. I had the pleasure of meeting him first through just reading about him. I think it was Ebony magazine, and then later had a chance to I think see him in Southern California, something hosted by S1 Books, if I remember correctly. And then in my birthplace, Little Rock, Arkansas, where he was here to do an event with the school district, but agreed to visit the Black community through a Black church after he finished with the work with the school district. And Abari mentioned that literacy is something that I enjoy dearly. Um, Partially because of growing up in the South, listening to soul music and listening to those songs by people like Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, Stevie Wonder, I Wish. Those were all a part of my life growing up. And it was my rap music back in the day because it's, those songs spoke to me. They spoke about the times that we were in. And I love hearing that again, particularly because I'm from the South, Little Rock, Arkansas. And, we dealt with one of the most significant historical events around, civil rights movement with Little Rock Central High School. And so Dr. Kunjufu, when he did come to Little Rock, it was a reminder for me to pay attention to Black boys, pay attention to Black boys. Myself, I was a clutterer, speech-wise, in school. And a teacher wanted to put me in special education. And she should have never asked my mother or Southern mother, could she do that? She really heard the wrath of what a Black mother says to someone when you tell her that her son that she has raised, that she watches him read every day, that he can read. He understands the word much better than you. He just gets nervous and clutters his words. So no, hell no, he's not going to special ed. And so reading Dr. Kunjufu, he talks a lot about when Black boys are mixed diagnosed. They are putting special ed. And so I reflected on it as I got older, working in corporate America, but leaving corporate America, going to work in after school programs. I saw all of these Black boys who were coming to the after school program just to be an after school babysitter. But for me, I said, no, we're going to do more here. We're going to read, we're going to write, we're going to tell our story. We're going to know who we are. If somebody asks us a question about our family, we're going to know. We're going to be able to tell them who we are. And we're going to be able to write about it. I caught a little hell for, transforming an after-school fun program into a literacy program. But hey, we had to do it. Again, I came out of corporate America as a contract administrator, as a proposal writer. So I wanted our Black boys to be able to share their stories, as if, they were writing a proposal to survive in this evil, ugly world they were growing up in. Dr. Kunjufu gave me the ammunition that I needed, the guidelines that I needed to develop a literary arts program. In some ways branched off, and we had a special project for Black boys alone, because many of the Black boys were discouraged about reading in front of girls because they couldn't read. So I had to kind of separate them and have their own little program. Again, I caught hell for that. Why are you just focusing on Black boys? And I had to, and the church hosted the after school program. So I explained to them, this is why. Read Dr. Kunjufu's work. After them reading his work, understanding who he was, understanding why countering the conspiracy to destroy Black boys was important, they agreed. And it's one of the best moves I ever made in working with after school programs. Understanding that Black boys need to be in a space by themselves, understanding that we're in this together. All of us have been kind of pushed to the side, but through the Right On program with Mr. Oliver, we're going to work together and we're going to work this thing out. So again, I just want to thank Dr. Kunjufu for having those books, so I'll know how to look at Black boys and understand what was it about Black boys? Why weren't they reading? Was it a problem in the community? Was it a problem with their families? But one thing for sure, Dr. Kunjufu reminded me that is a conspiracy to destroy our boys. And one of the ways to destroy them is let them not really enjoy literature, books, seeing themselves And again, not helping them understand that they're exceptional. They're exceptional young Black boys. And so
Yeah.
shout out to Dr. Kunjufu and family for bringing this together.
Thank you, Brother Patrick. Thank you for your testimony, for your work. Make sure y'all following up. If you can't put the link so people can click on it and go directly to your site. And, this is the urgent work. This ain't fun time. This is wartime. And you
Yes,
can't read. There's so much you can do. So appreciate you, brother. Next, we'd love to hear, we got VIP educators in the house. Dr. Salome is one of them, another principal, another author, another brilliant mind focusing on the right stuff in the schools and in community for our families and children. So without further ado, Brother Thomas L., to the floor.
Thank you, brother, Dr. Obari. It's truly an honor. And you mentioned the word urgency, and I think you never talked to um, Dr. Jufu and didn't have a sense of urgency for the education and upliftment of our children and our people. As you heard someone say, that brother was an activist as well, first and foremost. And I think he taught us that that's the purpose of education, to teach children to be activists. I was a young teacher, like, Brother Kafele in the 80s. And my mother said, listen, she would often, our mothers they wanted more for their children. So they always gave us books. They gave us books and they took us to lectures. And she said, if you're going to be a good teacher, then you got to read these books. And she started giving me these books, by the good brother. And I just started reading them and said, you know what, these books have to get into our schools, but they weren't in the curriculum. And as Brother Kafele said, we had to learn how to smuggle. Folks were smuggling drugs in the hood, but we were smuggling books into the school, African-centered books. And, and then when my principal would come in, I would bring out the Eurocentric book, say, oh, yeah, I'm teaching what you want. But as soon as they left, Dr. Kunjufu came right back out, teaching about the Songhai Empire and Timbuktu and Imhotep. I had children, and I said, I need these. And as brother, Patrick Oliver talked about, is he felt a need to make sure that we were not sentencing our children to special education. So I said, where can I go and find these children? So I started going and teaching the alternative schools, alternative programs, and said, I'm going to help some of these children get master's degrees with Dr. Kunjufu's work. And lo and behold, some of those same children who I was teaching about base 1 and base 10, learning from books from the good brother, they're now teaching in Philadelphia. My whole career entirely almost was in the city of Philadelphia. And some of these young people in these programs are teachers. One is a principal now from the teachings and the knowledge, of Dr. Kunjufu. And I remember I wrote I Choose to Stay in 2003, and my greatest moment is one of my friends called me and I said, what's happening? I was in school. He said, listen, I'm in a conference. And Dr. Kunjufu was talking about I Choose to Stay. I said, man, you lying. He said, brother, he's talking about how you took chess and used it to elevate the minds of young people. And this was like hearing your book was on the New York Times bestseller list. As you hear people say, when Dr. Kunjufu, when he endorsed you, you made it. And when they said that brother mentioned me, I had to reach out to him. And when I met him at a conference, of course, at a NAPSI conference, because that's where you want to go and meet Black powerful people. You go to NAPSI conferences. And when I met the brother, I knew that I had reached the pinnacle, that I had reached a brother who was all about elevating others, uplifting others. And so I want to thank the ancestors for bringing that brother into our lives. I want to thank our elders that are on here tonight. I want to thank you, brother, for bringing us together to celebrate this brother, because for many of us, we were in mourning when we lost him, and we didn't know how to celebrate. But you gave us an opportunity to be able to tonight to talk about his life in our community, right, in our fellowship, but also to talk about how he impacted us, because he wanted us all to be learners. The impact of an educator is not based on our ability to teach, but rather our ability to learn and be curious. And if nothing more, Dr. Kunjufu wanted us all to be curious about our Black boys, about our Black children, about our families, but also to be willing to learn. And so I want to thank our entire family here tonight, and just know from one Black teacher, I've been a principal for over 25 years, an educator for 39 years. And it's not one moment. And I'm still choosing to stay. I'm still here. I don't know how long I can be here because we're in some trying times. But I do know that I'm only here today because Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu said to me through his writings that our children don't need charity. They need us to invest in them. And that's what I did, brother. I decided to invest in our children. I want to thank everybody who's here
That's
tonight.
dope. Love it, love it, love it. Appreciate you, my brother. Please put your link in the chat so people can go directly to you and get these books. Again, y'all hearing a list of books. We talk about developing a resource guide, Dr. Kunjufu's books, but we also got other books inspired by him that he also engaged with that we all need to be reading, having study groups on, make sure we're smuggling them into the curriculums or creating our institutions so we ain't got to hide them no more. That's the work that he instructs us to do, and we got the people on this call that can make that happen. I appreciate y'all. Y'all mentioned NASB a couple times. I think we forgot to mention that Principal Caffelli is the president-elect.
Yes,
So
yes,
we want
yes.
to give him a congratulations for that too.
For New Jersey.
New Jersey, yeah, there we go. That's it. So we got leadership in the room for the important, powerful organizations. So I want to acknowledge that. Who we have next? Sister Roberta, I'm not sure if she made it. We had a sister from Brazil who is leading the charge of making sure we remember that there's a diaspora of folk who are inspired by our sort of descendants of Africans here in the States, but the intellect and the wisdom travels around the world. So she's created an institute to study Black psychologists and educators in Brazil. And I saw on Instagram that they did a tribute to him down in Brazil. All this is in Portuguese, right? I'm not sure if she made it because of time zone. I don't know if she made it here or not. But Sister Roberta, just wanted to acknowledge her tribute. We asked her if she could speak, say a few words about what she shared, what they learned. I'm not sure if she's here or not. And if not, we'll come back to her if I let me give her a call. Okay, sounds like a no. Um, but y'all can reach out to her. This is her Instagram page. I can put a link to her website, but we got folk around the world. This brother was inspiring people all around the globe, and just wanted to represent that, even if it's just through this image, so y'all can know what's happening. Another tribute that I saw, I'm not sure if Brother Daryl, I ain't put him on the fly, but I don't know if he's here. He want to say a word about what he learned. There were several tributes that were happening. So as I was collecting them, I wanted to just share them with the family and the community to know that people did not let this moment pass, that we are honoring him through the moment, but also we'll continue to honor him through the work. So didn't want that to go unnoticed. We have another friend of the family, Miss Melissa Williams. If you have a moment to share, we'd love to hear from you also.
I good evening, everyone. I bring you greetings from the paternal roots of Brother Jawanza, who is my cousin. I bring you greetings from East Texas. And I've heard the moderator say that my cousin inspired folks from around the globe. But I'd like you all to know where much of his beginnings were as far as his paternal roots and how that shaped the person, the man that you all know today. Once again, I'm Melissa Williams. I'm Jawanza's cousin. Jawanza spent every summer in East Texas. Where in East Texas? Primarily in Huntsville, Texas, Jasper, Texas, and Nacogdoches, Texas. He and his sister Cynthia. As many young people did in the early 60s, they came to the South to spend summers with their relatives and cousins um, from the North, and they came to the South to be with us. And so that was a quite wonderful time for us. But what I remember most about uh, cousin Jawanza, or as we knew him at the time, Jerome, was as he was before that, he was Jerome Brown. And cousin Jerome was always, although he was only 4 years older than I was and 2 years older than his sister, and there were other cousins who would be there from Arkansas and around. But Jawanza was always put in charge of us. He has always been a leader. He's been dependable when our parents left us or my grandparents. You said his grandmother Gongi, who was very, very, and I'll give you a little story about that. But Jawanza was always put in charge of the rest of the kids. We did not dare go against what he said. So I would like to say that he was influencing young people from an early age. He also taught us lessons. I think his sister is on this call as well. But in those days, in the 1960s, for a young man from Chicago to come to the deep East Texas town of Nacogdoches, Texas, or Huntsville, Texas, and I don't know if you know anything about Texas in the 60s or East Texas, it wasn't always the easiest place for people who look like us to be. But we were able to, under the tutelage and direction of Jawanza, to pretty much roam around those towns and those cities the way we wanted to. We didn't know. He was our protector. He was the person who determined what we would do that full day. He was the person who determined what we'd eat, where we'd go, how we would spend our money. He was definitely in charge of us. Um, I don't remember it, but there are people who said that when we would go to town, there would be, as we were walking into the city, that people would say, nigger, 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 nigger. I don't remember that, but all I can remember is that my cousin, Jerome, made me feel safe, made me feel happy and comfortable. And he did that from a young age. He continued until my adulthood, into my 60s. He would call me every year on my birthday. He never forgot my birthday. He'd always call, um, although sometimes I'd forget his, he would always call me. Jawanza had a deep, deep love for his family, his roots in Texas. He spoke about that, I think, a lot. We'd always come hear him when he was in Houston or Dallas. He even spoke here in Huntsville, Texas, where he was a tremendous hit. So I just want to just let you know that the skills that he had, the skills that you know, we knew them first. Um, my grandmother used to have us do a talent show on Saturdays, and we'd all do, little songs or dances. But she would always say after Jawanza finished, she'd tell him, "Baby, you gonna preach. Baby, you're going to be somebody who's going to preach." Little did we know that, when you listen to older people, they have ways of seeing things in children, um, and that they carry on. What we tell children matters. And so from an early age, he was told he was going to be someone that people would listen to. And so I think of that, what Gongi said all those years ago in the 1960s, and how that has really come to fruition and manifested himself so that he can be the person who has inspired people around the world. I love him. I miss him. Uh, we're better because of him. And I'm just grateful to have been included on today. Thank you so much.
Wow. No, thank you. We needed that. That's the important element because there's a lot of people who do work for Black folk and it's performative and they do it for all kind of reasons. But we know from you that this was genuine. He was doing this the whole time, right? We got to give honor
Mhm.
to Grandma Gongi too for planting seeds. But he got it. Like he had it naturally, which is why the impact was so genuine because people can feel it when it's real. And it's real when cousins say it was real back when we was kids. So thank you for that. Um,
Thank
and next, maybe last, I think we might be at the end of this. I'm not sure if Brother Jamon Jordan, official historian of Detroit, is on the call. I might have got a text saying that he can't make it today, but he wrote a really beautiful heartfelt tribute on his Facebook. Did some work with Papa Jawanza when he was in Detroit, and he traveled around with him a little bit. So that testimony might not make it today, but if you want to reach out to him, he is available. Um, but we saved the best for last. Can't wait to hear the matriarch, the Queen Mother, Miss Rita Kunjufu, Mrs. Rita Kunjufu. He opened us with a beautiful prayer and would now like you to close us out with some reflections, some remarks, some concluding, closing statements. I have one more video. I think we got a little bit of time to play just to hear him in his voice as the last voice. But the second to last voice, we would love to hear from you, Mama Rita, as you share with us your brilliant, beautiful insight to who Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu was to you. You had a very unique perspective of him, and can't continue without hearing that from you. So, Mama Rita, the floor is yours.
Well, I want to say to everyone how much of a blessing my husband was to me. Throughout the 40 years that we were married, he was a tremendous blessing. I learned a lot from him. We were a team. We played together. We worked together. We fellowshiped together at church. We did rearing of our children together. He was such a blessing. He was so easygoing. He was mild-mannered. He was teachable, even though, he was very accomplished. He was still a husband and a father and a friend. We did a number of things together. We shared together. We were very close. Because we worked together, it gave us an opportunity to spend a lot of time together. However, we didn't smother each other. We still gave each other space. He did his thing, I did my thing. Jawanza was very family oriented. He didn't want to be away from the family for long. He traveled quite a bit. I coordinated his schedule most of the time. And so I knew where he was, what he was doing. He was very conscientious about what he ate, and he wanted to swim and make sure that the hotel that he was staying at had a gym so that he could work out. So he would speak, and then he would eat, and he would go to the gym, and he would swim. But he made sure that before he concluded for the evening, that he was in touch with his family. And even his boys, when they were much younger, they will attest to the fact that he always called home so that he can find out about what their day was like. He wanted to connect with me to find out what my day was like, even though we worked together and I would give him a heads up about what happened at the office. He was interested in me as a person. He was very encouraging to me. He always wanted me to become the best person that I could be. He never made me feel like he was so important, but I wasn't. He encouraged me, and he always had my back. I could talk to him about so many things. One of the things that I remember so well about my husband is he gave me his heart, he trusted me with his money, and he gave me an ear. And those were so significant to me because those were overt indications of the love that he had for me and how much he trusted me. We had our differences, of course. Everybody does, especially working together. We kind of clash sometimes. However, we never stayed angry at one another. There was never a day that we didn't speak or we didn't go for weeks and months without interacting with one another. We tried to resolve our conflict quickly. And we tried not to bring things up. He would always say, okay, don't rehash now. And I say, okay. So we would drop it and we would just leave it alone. The fact that we were born again Christians is what made the difference in our lives. We loved each other deeply. We were very compatible. We were respectful of one another. However, we found out that that was not enough, because during difficult times, we had to have someone to go to that could help us to resolve our conflict. And he would think he was right. I thought I was right. But if he went to the Lord with what concerned him, and I went to the Lord with what concerned me, then we met up at the throne of God. And God always helped us to reconcile. I would go to the Lord and tell him on Jawanza, okay, God, now you know he did this, that, and the other. And I thought I had a case. But what God would always do was to show me myself. He would say, okay, I remember when Jawanza and I had been married about 6 months, and a cousin of mine had given us some furniture, nice furniture. Jawanza was out of town at the time. So I took the liberty of accepting the furniture. Well, I was used to making decisions like that, so I didn't see a problem with it. But when Jawanza came back in town, he was not very pleased. And so he said, what is this? And I said, well, it's furniture. It's nice. You know, we could use a few pieces. And he said, no, I don't want this. It makes the place look cluttered. I was so hurt because I thought I had made such a good decision. So we talked about it. He wasn't going to give in. He told me, you know, have the cousin to come pick it up. So I went into the basement of our home. I'll never forget this. And while I was down there, I was talking to the Lord and I was crying crocodile tears because my feelings were hurt. And I talked to God and I told him what had happened, as if God didn't know. And so I remember saying, okay, Lord, what are we going to do now? And I remember hearing in my spirit God saying to me, okay, Rita, let's say that you're right. And I said, all righty, now I got him. Now God's on my side. He know the brother's wrong. But God said to me something that was so important that it carried me through our marriage until the day my husband left here. God said to me, you can be right or you can be married, and you need to make a decision today. And I made a decision that day that I wanted to be married. Being right wasn't important to me, not as much as it was for me to be married to my husband and to have a very good relationship with him. So I miss my partner, but my faith has taught me that this is not the end. This is the beginning. My husband is in heaven. He is very much alive and he is waiting for me. He is scouting out the place. And so when I get there, he can show me the ropes. So all is well with the Kunjufu family. Everybody is coming along okay. Keep us in your prayers and know that we do not mourn like the world because we have a hope that the world doesn't have. Our hope is in Jesus Christ. He paid the price for our salvation, and we will see our loved ones again who die in Christ. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. I love it. He lives on. I love that sentiment. I think that's the theme for today. He lives on through the family, through the community, through the work. So we ain't saying goodbye to nobody. We saying, happy transition. We are grateful for the legacy and the work that he left us. We would be remiss if we did not, as we are, gathering to share our love with you and the family, to not make that love tangible. We want to make sure that as we saying we appreciate what he did for us, he's transformed so many of our lives, that the organization still exists. The curriculum is still out there. The books are still on the shelves. We still need this work more urgently than we ever did. And so before we end, we want to ask everyone to continue to support. The money that was coming in from speaking engagements can't happen anymore, but there's still ways that we can support the family, support the organization, reach out to Mama Rita, to reach out to the family, reach out to the cousins and the children, find ways to make sure that we are living the love by continuing to support. Well, I'm going to send a document out at the end of this to everyone who registered. Y'all can share it widely. That's going to include direct links to all of the presenters, to the organization, the ways to learn more about how to support the curriculum and the books and to purchase books. I think there's a sale right now, Mama Rita. Did you say you're going to?
Yes. Yes. for customers to just visit the website. The books are reduced. There's a bundle of Dr. Kunjufu's 10 bestsellers that's available at a highly reduced price. So if the people will just go to the website, they'll see the products.
So I'm gonna make sure all of that is very clear in a link that I'm sending to everyone. But also I'm seeing people put references and resources in the chat. So I'm gonna compile if there are other things that people are working on and doing. We want to make sure people are aware of those things. Organizations, rites of passage, books, resources, educational material, things that y'all might need support with. I want to make sure that we all are really living the legacy by continuing the work. So that was the goal for this, is to share stories, but also to honor him through the legacy, through the next generation, so we can make sure that, you know, we're doing what he asked us to do. And with that, I'm going to close. Thank everyone so much for being here. We're going to have the final word be a video from Dr. Kunjufu more recently. This was 30 years after the conspiracy. So you get to see the longevity of the work. You get to see the evolution of his thinking. And again, as we talked about moving forward, that he gave clear instruction. He created blueprints. He has models, and we can continue to learn from them, but they need the legs, hearts, minds, and bodies to continue that work. And I believe that we have gathered an assembly of folks who are doing it, and we all need support to keep doing it more. And we need to collaborate to make sure that it's happening at the highest, most excellent, expression, just as he is modeled for us for so long. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to end with this last video interview with Dr. Jawanza, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and we will conclude at the end of his voice. So this will be my last word. Anybody else have any final statements before we play this? Okay, so this will be the last statement. This will be the last word. It'll become from him himself, and then we will close. Y'all welcome to stay and can engage in the chat if y'all need to, share resources as y'all need to, but this will be the final concluding voice of our tribute today. Thank you all again so much for teaching and learning and sharing space together in honor of Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu.
On this edition of Right and Exact, Darshan Farad speaks with world-renowned author and lecturer Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu about the plight of young black men and young black women, a subject that he has lectured on for over 3 decades.
Dr. Kunjufu, given what we've seen over the past 5 years, I would say, with the recent killings of black men, or the recent unjust killings of black men by police officers, should we still be countering a conspiracy to destroy black boys, as you said, over 30 years ago? And if so, why?
Well, unfortunately, the conspiracy continues, and one of my frustrations is that even with video cam, even with video footage of police officers violently killing our people, unfortunately, trying to secure justice in the courts, they keep using the position that the policeman was fearful of his life. And they use that, and they've used it so many times, especially with in court with jurors, where they've been able to win. So our success, our efficacy of winning those cases is less than 20%. And that's with full footage of what took place. But as you know, this conspiracy goes beyond police brutality. I mean, if we just look at the homicide in my hometown, Chicago, where almost every year we're close to 1,000 black males killed by black males. But the conspiracy goes beyond that. I mean, the large numbers of black boys who are placed in special education. I mean, we're 17% of the students, but we're 41% of the special ed children. And if a black child is placed in special ed, 80% are black male children. In most cities like Baltimore, Washington, Detroit, Chicago, our graduation rate is only 50%. So there's some real challenges. So what does a black male do in his current economy with a criminal record and less than a high school diploma? How economically competitive is this young man going to be? What are his economic options if he has a record illiterate? I mean, only 12% of black boys are proficient in reading by 8th grade. The richest country in the world, for some reason, can't teach 88% of black males how to read. This conspiracy continues.
We noticed that in recent years, Dr. Kunjufu, you have done, if you would, pardon me if it's offensive, a slight change of pace.
Yes.
For the most part, your research and your scholarship has dealt with the plight of black males, black men and boys. I've noticed you've begun focusing on the plight of black women, black girls in particular. You have these two books, Raising Black Girls and Educating Black Girls. Why the slight change of pace, if you would?
Well, as a publisher, our publishing company is African American Images, and over the years, I've always asked other women or other people to write those books because I thought they were better prepared to do that than myself. So some of the books that we've written, The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Women by Michael Porter, Sisters Helping Sisters by Madeline Wright, a book on black female rites of passage called Her Story by Mary Lewis. There's this book that we've written by Joy Jones, Between Black Women, based in Washington, D.C. So I've always been interested in the topic, but I was criticized. This one situation just really became almost humorous to me. I was asked to speak in Oakland about the plight of black males. And the first question to come up was a question from a black female. When are you going to talk about the 12% of black females who are also suspended? Now the audience, defended me, but I took her question to heart, that she was talking passionately about the fact that all is not well with our black girls. For example, 1 of every 4 girls in America has an STD. 1 of every 2 black girls has an STD. And the media is silent about that. The large numbers of black males, black females that are reported HIV positive, the large numbers of black girls in gangs who are incarcerated, the fact that black female wealth is between $5 and $100. So there are some issues that needed to be addressed. And that's why I wrote Educating Black Girls and Raising Black Girls. And I'm happy to do it. It stretched me. It made me a better person, a better father, a better husband. So all is well.
Well, Dr.
All is well indeed.